Let us start a new round of understanding of internal medicine. Particularly, we are now focusing on acid-base disorders, acid-base balance. Not only I take you through the biochemistry and all the calculations, but I also will go through some clinical examples and see their relevance and how we can sort out those things. This is a series of lectures like this given as a workshop in JSS Medical University, Mysore. And I have just refined some of those slides for our understanding and brought some more clinical examples. So let's not rush through the things. Unless you understand, I will not go to the next section. So let us start off with today's understanding. So this is the part 1 of acid-base disorders. Basic concepts and understanding of acid-base disorders. That is the part 1. And then this is tailored for, as I told you, for our college, starting from today. And then there is a calculator here. This presentation will be shared with you. It's a clickable calculator, and you can use that to calculate some of the acid-base calculations like osmolar gap and anion gap and things like that. Okay. Of course, this is available on the website. So there are basically, as all of you have undergraduates who have studied, that there is acidosis and there is alkalosis, and these are two important disorders, and acidosis and acidemia, two important concepts you must understand. Leukemia, anemia, hyperlipidemia, glycosemia, glycemia. Like that you say emia means what is circulating in the blood. Osis means the pathology behind that. Okay. Acidemia means the pH of the arterial blood is less than 7.36. Alkalemia means the pH of the arterial blood is more than 7.44. Then what is the normal pH? The one between 7.36 and 7.44 will be the normal one. 7.4 is the normal pH of the blood. So what is the neutral pH? Neutral pH is 7. So in the sense, blood or plasma is slightly alkaline because it is more than 7. That is the nature of the plasma. So we call acidemia and alkalemia when we have the departure of the pH value to these values less than 7.36 is acidemia, and then more than 7.44 is alkalemia. Now, acidosis is an abnormal condition lowering the arterial pH before secondary changes in response to the primary etiological factors occur. So this is the process going on in the tissues. Say, for example, kidney or in the muscle or in the respiratory mechanism causing acidosis, which shifts the pH. Once the pH is shifted, we see as acidemia and alkalemia, and the process or the disease or pathology is called acidosis and alkalosis. Here, a little caution, there may be acidosis in the system, but the blood may not reflect the acidosis. There may not be acidemia in the blood because there are compensatory mechanisms occurring, and what you see is a summary of the compensatory mechanisms in the blood, but there may be underlying acidosis. That is why we need to differentiate these two terms. Similar is the one with alkalosis, abnormal condition raising the arterial pH before secondary changes in response to the primary etiological factor occur. There is an underlying pathology which is causing alkalosis. There are what are called simple acid-base disorders. That means there is a single primary etiological or pathogenetic factor behind the acid-base disorder. Mixed acid-base disorders are, they have primary etiological factor, maybe more than one. There may be a primary with one or two secondary factors simultaneously operating to produce mixed acid-base disorder. Little difficult to diagnose, little difficult to manage too. But nonetheless, we will go through in our exercise not only to look at the simple AB disorders, but also we will look at the mixed AB disorders. Okay? I hope you understood what I talked on this slide. So the basics are acidosis and alkalosis refer to the process which cause the acid or alkali to accumulate. They do not imply directly abnormality in the pH. There is another term which you need to know is what is called a buffer. What is a buffer? It is a substance which can absorb or donate ions and mitigate but not prevent the changes in the pH. If there is a shift in the pH, there is a compensatory mechanism to mitigate the change in the pH. Though the process is there in the body, the pH need to be maintained in a narrow zone for various cellular functions to occur. For that, immediately a substances in the plasma and in the system, they adjust the pH by either absorbing or donating ions, either positive or negative ions, depending on the situation. So what is that then? A buffer is a substance which instantaneously tries to adjust the pH by absorbing or donating ions, either positive or negative, to mitigate the changes in the pH. This buffer may not prevent the changes that are happening. It requires some other different mechanisms in the tissues, mainly in the kidney and the lungs, to prevent those changes. But buffer can alter in the plasma. A compensation will occur for the acidosis. This compensation is not 100% perfect. Suppose there are 5 units of acid are added, not that all the 5 units can be compensated. So it is not a perfect process. If we were to correct an acid-base disturbance, it would be removing the stimulus also to do so. Sometimes we may require the stimulus to continue, for the body to continue having the protective mechanisms. So let's go a little further, you understand it. Now, you need to understand what are these normal values in the blood. We are talking about the blood or the plasma. In the arterial blood and in the mixed venous blood, there is a slight difference between the arterial values and the venous values. We are interested in the arterial values, where you do an arterial blood gas examination, and that gives you the arterial blood values. Okay, the arterial pH is 7.4. I told you the distilled water is neutral and its pH is 7, whereas the plasma is slightly alkaline and it is 7.4. The range, as we have seen, is 7.35 to 7.45. Anything less than 7.35 is lower pH, means acidosis. More than 7.45 is higher pH, which is alkalosis. Then what is the pH in the mixed venous blood? Almost the same. Almost the same. 7.33 to 7.43, almost the same. PCO2, that is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood, is 40. The range being 30 to 45. What do you expect in the venous blood, the carbon dioxide? To be higher, because venous blood contains more of carboxyhemoglobin. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be more than 40 to 51. Whereas the oxygen saturation in the arterial blood will be 95 millimeters of mercury. This is not the saturation you measure by the finger oximeter. This is the arterial blood oxygen partial pressure, which is 95 millimeters of mercury, the range being 80 to 90. Whereas the PO2, that is the partial pressure of oxygen in the actually, you have to write PaO2 for arterial and PvO2 for the venous. Those letters are omitted. If you write capital A there, it becomes alveolar oxygen. So if you don't write anything, it is PO2, means it is arterial blood. PvO2 is venous blood. That is 35 to 49, much lower than the arterial blood. Roughly half of that. Saturation, as measured by your oximetry, 95% is the saturation in the arterial blood, 70 to 75% is the saturation in the mixed venous blood. There is what is called the BE. What is BE? Base excess. We come to that during our calculations, that is plus minus 2 base excess in arterial blood, and that is calculation is not applicable for the venous blood. Then you have bicarbonate, 24 milliequivalents per liter, range being 22 to 26, and bicarbonate in the venous blood is slightly higher. Bicarbonate is 24 to 28 is the bicarbonate there. Okay, so these are the values in the arterial blood and in the mixed venous blood. Remember the arterial values very much because this is what you get in the ABG report and you need to interpret. Again, I am repeating pH 7.4, PCO2 40 millimeters of mercury, PO2 95 millimeters of mercury, saturation 95%, 24 milliequivalents is the bicarbonate. Remember them. These are very essential for our calculations. Now, the body and the pH, the homeostasis of pH is very tightly controlled. Extracellular fluid pH is 7.4. Blood has got 7.35 to 7.45 because blood is a dynamic fluid. Because of the dynamicity, there is a little range there, and that range is 7.35 to 7.45. Less than 7.35, acidosis coupled with acidemia, and then 7.45, alkalosis with alkalemia. When you say emia, it is in the blood. Okay, any pH less than 6.8 or more than 8 is not tenable for human existence. Death occurs. Immediately, there will be death. One of the common causes of death in ICUs is sodium disturbance and acid-base disturbance. So we need to be aware of these things. Now, look at the pH of the arterial blood, normal pH range 7.35 to 7.45, and that is the normal range here. And then you can see here, this is the normal range here. Anything less than 7.35 we call as acidosis, less than 6.8 not tenable, more than 8 not tenable with life. So this is the alkalotic range and this is the acidotic range. One important thing you need to know here is in your chemistry, you would have learned that pH is the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration. Negative log to the base 10 of hydrogen ion concentration. Means what? If the hydrogen ion concentration is more, because it is the negative log, it is going to, pH is going to be less. If the hydrogen ion concentration is less, pH is going to be more. What is hydrogen ion? Hydrogen ion is a proton. This proton is acidic. If the hydrogen ions are more, there is acidic pH and acidic environment, and the pH has to be lower. That is why in acidosis, there will be pH will be lower because pH is the sort of negative logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration. The power of hydrogen or the pH is, if you expand it, hydrogen power in the body. This is measured as the negative logarithm to the base 10. Okay. Now, let's go further. The body produces, where do these acids occur in the body? And where are the bases manufactured? Acids are taken with the food. For example, citric acid, tartaric. Somebody is disturbing. Madam Pallavika, you are not supposed to talk when the class is going on. Please be aware of that. Okay. As taken with food are the constituents of food acids like tartaric acid and then your citric acid, any other organic, inorganic acid. And also due to cellular metabolism, carbon dioxide is produced. You know that every reaction in the body ends up in carbon dioxide and water, and that carbon dioxide when dissolved in water forms carbonic acid, which is H2CO3. Acids produced by metabolism of lipids and proteins are complex acids. So there are two types of acids. One is called the volatile acid, the other is called the fixed acid. Volatile acids means those which can take a gaseous form. Fixed acids are those which cannot take a gaseous form. For example, you know, tartaric acid. You can't have a gas of tartaric acid. Whereas hydrochloric acid, you can have hydrogen chloride gas. Okay. You can have carbon dioxide dissolved in water as the volatile acid. Fixed acids are those which don't have a gaseous form. Volatile acids are those which can take a gaseous and liquid form. Okay. H2CO3, or otherwise known as carbonic acid, is reversibly related to carbon dioxide and water. So carbon dioxide is produced in the tissues. There is water as an end product of metabolism or the metabolic water or the water consumed. These together can form H2CO3, which is carbonic acid, which is nothing but the dissolved carbon dioxide. So these volatile acids contribute to 50 to 20 millimoles per deciliter. That is the amount of acidity by the volatile acids. Whereas fixed acids are sulfuric acid, H3PO4, that is phosphoric acid, uric acid, lactic acid, ketone bodies. All of these, metabolic acids. These are organic acids. Their contribution is meager in the sense the contribution of hydrogen ions from the fixed acids is 0.05 to 1.0 millimoles, moles per deciliter. Whereas here it is almost 100 times that, 15 to 20 millimoles per deciliter are by the volatile acids. But even if a slight shift in these acids occurs, it produces acid-base disorder because these are not volatile acids and these cannot be excreted. So in relation to these things, volatile acid has to be formed and then only it can get excreted. Fixed acids, of course, are excretable through the kidney. Volatile acids can be excreted through the lung. So that is why this is important. Fixed acids, the kidney. Volatile acids are dealt by the carbon dioxide through the carbon dioxide by the lungs. Okay. Now, so what are the types of defenses we have to keep the pH in such a normal range? And this defense is of 3 lines. The 3 lines of defense mechanisms are there in the body to keep the acid-base balance. Number 1, the buffers. Number 2, the respiratory mechanism. Number 3, the renal mechanism. Okay, these buffers, they instantaneously try to adjust the pH. They don't take much time. Within a few minutes to 10 minutes, the buffers will take over and try to keep the pH in that narrow range. And later on, the buffers are replenished. But buffers, when used, they require to be replenished by the body. That is done as a separate mechanism. Whereas respiratory mechanism to set in and correct the acid-base disorder, it takes a few hours. Whereas the renal mechanism to set in and then correct the acid-base disorder, it takes a few days to a week. So we have an instantaneous force, we have a reserve police force, and we have the army force. Instantaneous force means our direct police people directly available in the station. Any problem is there, they will come. The reserve police will come when there is a requirement and they take little time. And if there is a lot of disturbance, then the army will be recruited and that takes even longer time. So like that here also, instantaneous buffering by the blood buffers, respiratory mechanism, few hours, renal mechanism, days to weeks. Okay, so this is the line of defense. Let us see them. What do these buffers do? How do they mitigate these changes? The buffer systems are, they take up hydrogen or release the hydrogen as the conditions change. And then obviously the buffers must be a pair, because to take up hydrogen, we require a base. To give hydrogen, we require an acid. So it must be a combination of an acid and a base. An acid and a base pair is called a buffer. Okay, why weak acid? What is a weak acid? Weak acid means which is only 30 kilos. Strong acid means 100 kilos, not like that. Weak acid means the one which does not dissociate readily and then increase the hydrogen ion changes. Whereas sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, nitric acids are strong acids. They become ionic immediately and they're strong acids and they're converted into HCl very immediately. Whereas weak acid, they don't dissociate that easily, and the electrolysis, when you apply the electrolysis, weak acids take little time, whereas the strong acids are very quick in their action. We require weak acids. We don't want very strong acids to be base phase. And then what are the weak acids we have? We will see in the base phase, coupled with the base. Exchange of a strong acid or a base for a weak one. Suppose a strong acid is produced, that is a sulfuric acid or lactic acid is produced, and that acid is exchanged for a weaker one. So hydrogen number will be the same, but the dissociation constants will be different, and the weak acid will deal with the situation. Results in much smaller pH changes. If it is a strong acid, it dissociates quickly, and the pH will be just fluctuating like anything. Weaker acid, the release is smaller, so the fluctuations of the pH are mitigated. Okay. The first important buffer you need to know is what is called the bicarbonate buffer. What is this bicarbonate buffer? NaHCO3 is sodium bicarbonate. Okay, sodium bicarbonate in the normal sense is called the baking soda. Na2CO3 is sodium carbonate, which is the washing soda, which you use in all the soaps and detergents and all that. So this NaHCO3 is the baking soda, which has got a H in that. And there is a strong acid in the body, let us say HCl. The NaHCO3 combines with that, and then this H is added to the other H there, and these two H's, H plus H, becomes H2. The CO3 is combined, a weak acid is formed, and this sodium takes that Cl and becomes NaCl, which is dealt by the kidney. And this is a weaker acid. The effect of stronger acid is mitigated because this immediately dissociates to secrete or give away hydrogen ions, whereas this does not readily dissociate. So the hydrogen ions are kept inside this and then buffered. That is why this is the buffer. This is for the acid. Suppose there is an alkali excess, which is a very strong alkali, like sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide. These are very strong alkalis. These alkalis are dangerous. Immediately they dissociate into OH and Na. This OH will be the alkaline ion that produces alkalosis. To mitigate that, what is formed here, this carbonic acid is available. This carbonic acid takes away the sodium part of it and combines that one H of this and then HCO3, H plus CO3. One H is released, that H combines with the OH to form H2O or water, and the remaining HCO3 will take up the sodium to form sodium bicarbonate and thus replenishes this one. So if we require further sodium bicarbonate, it is generated here. If we require carbonic H2CO3 or carbonic acid, it is generated here. That is why these are self-perpetuating, self-propelling pair of buffers. So what is the whole thing happening there? There is a strong acid in the body, which is converted into a weaker acid and a salt which is easily excretable. There is a strong alkali here, which is mopped by that and converted into water and a weaker base. NaHCO3 is a bicarbonate, is a weaker base. So a strong base is converted into a weaker base. And this is how these are replenished also. This is what is called the bicarbonate buffer system. Remember that this is one of the very important buffer systems in the body. Okay. Now, phosphate buffer. There's another buffer called the phosphate buffer. These phosphates are generally intracellular. So intracellular or cellular also there will be acid-base disturbances will occur. To mitigate them, we require intracellular buffer and sodium dihydrogen phosphate and disodium monohydrogen phosphate. Monosodium dihydrogen phosphate and disodium monohydrogen phosphate is the buffer called the phosphate buffer. Suppose there is excess anion, that is the excess acid ions, hydrogen ions. These are buffered by the HPO2 minus, and this becomes H2PO4. This H2PO4 is phosphoric acid, which is a weaker acid. And this phosphoric acid, when there is an excess alkali, OH, combines with that to form again water and HPV4 too, and thus replenishing the HPV4. This is used here and this is used there. That is why this system is monosodium dihydrogen phosphate, disodium monohydrogen phosphate combination is another buffer which is there in the body, very important buffer, but it is intracellular in its position. Now, there are also protein buffers, plasma proteins, albumin, globulin. These act as protein buffers. The most important protein in the body, which acts as a buffer in the blood, is hemoglobin. Okay, hemoglobin, we all know that it has got a wonderful function of carrying the iron with that and also the oxygen with that. Hemoglobin oxidizes the tissues and gives the oxygen supply and keeps us full of oxygenation. But then, apart from that, hemoglobin has got a wonderful function of a protein buffer because it has got two terminals. One terminal is the carboxy terminal, the COOH terminal. The other terminal is called the NH3 terminal or the amino terminal. The carboxy terminal can give the H from that. COOH can become COO plus H, or carbon dioxide and hydrogen is released, or NH3 can accept the hydrogen to become NH4, ammonia to become ammonic salt. NH4Cl is ammonic salt. So amino group is accepting the hydrogen. The carboxyl group of the hemoglobin donates the hydrogen or gives up the hydrogen. That way, hemoglobin is a potent protein buffer. It is there in the blood. Now, what did we learn? There are three types of mechanisms to mitigate the acid-base disturbance. Number one is instantaneous by the buffer. Number two, it takes a few hours by the respiratory system. Number three, it takes by the kidney a few days to a week. And most for the fixed acids. For the volatile acids, it is the lung. For the buffers to act instantaneously, they will have a base and an acid pair. Acid-base pair is formed, and that has to be very weak acid and weak base, not strong acid and strong. We have three important buffers. One, the bicarbonate buffer in the ECF as well as in the plasma, whereas the phosphate buffer in the cells, intracellular, and the protein buffers both in the plasma and in the cells, particularly the hemoglobin, which is a intra-RBC molecule. And this has got a beautiful arrangement of having a carboxyl terminal to give up the hydrogen and an amino terminal to receive or accept the hydrogen. So these are the three important buffer systems you have. Let's go a little further. So what is the relative composition of the principal buffers in the body? Bicarbonate, carbonic acid bicarbonate system. First of all, let us see 42% of the buffers are distributed in the plasma, 58% are in the RBC, total 100%. If we have 100 buffer molecules, 42% of them are in the plasma, 58 are in the RBC. Out of this 42, 35 are constituted by bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer. Okay? In the plasma, there is no hemoglobin minus and H hemoglobin. This is the acid hemoglobin and the hemoglobin minus. That is not there, where that is the major constituent in the RBC, 35 out of 58. Whereas bicarbonate is also present intracellularly and within the red cells around 18%. The H protein minus, that is, the proteins in the plasma acting as the buffer. 7% is by the plasma proteins. There are no plasma proteins in the RBC. The only protein available is the hemoglobin there, whereas there is also called the phosphoric acid phosphate buffer, H2PO4 versus HPO4. That is not available in the plasma. That is a tissue intracellular thing. 5%. So the relative composition of the intracellular buffer system dominantly by the hemoglobin, to some extent by the bicarbonate, little by the plasma protein, somewhat 5% by the plasma protein. Whereas in the plasma, the dominant buffer is the bicarbonate buffer, then proteins, plasma proteins are the second one, hemoglobin and the phosphate buffers do not have anything to do with the plasma levels of acid-base disturbances. So hope you have understood this. Now, we go to the respiratory mechanism. This is the buffer mechanism, is the first instantaneous mechanism. Then we have got the respiratory mechanism. So this respiratory mechanism is exhalation of the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, take deep breath and then you exhale the carbon dioxide. What will happen? It could be rapid, it could be powerful, but only works with volatile acids. We know that lungs can excrete only carbon dioxide. If the acid is volatile, then it can be converted into carbon dioxide that can be exhaled. For example, hydrogen plus bicarbonate give rise to carbonic acid. Carbonic acid dissociates into carbon dioxide and water. Water is sent into the system to the kidney. Carbon dioxide is excreted to the lung. Does not affect the fixed acids like lactic acid or the ketone bodies or other pyruvic acid or other acids in the body. This is only for the volatile acids. The body pH can be adjusted by changing the rate and the depth of the breathing. So what is the control we have in the respiration? We can either increase the rate, normal being 18, it can be 24, 30, 40, hyperventilation, like that, or the depth of the breathing. So normal tidal volume is 500, normal depth of the breathing. If you increase it to 1000, so you can double the tidal volume up to a maximum. You can't throw away all that is in the lung because there is residual volume. So majority of that, around 80% or 70%, forced respiratory volume. That is the FVC, forced respiratory volume is there, and forced inspiratory volume and the expiratory volumes are there, and they can adjust the rate as well as the depth of respiration can vary to compensate for any excess in the acid. Suppose there is any excess in the acid, more carbon dioxide is produced, hyperventilation, depth and rate will occur. Carbon dioxide is thrown out and it is made. Okay. Now, there is less of acid, the respiration is depressed, carbon dioxide is conserved, that becomes again carbonic acid. Carbonic acid gives the hydrogen ions. This is an acid and then mitigates it. So there could be respiratory alkalosis and respiratory acidosis due to problems of the lungs themselves. The pathology resides in the lung. Of course, when they compensate, it is okay. When the pathology itself is in the lung, then it can lead to respiratory acidosis or respiratory alkalosis. We'll come to those things later. Now, what is the renal mechanism of regulation? Probably this will be the last concept I'm going to talk about today, and then with that we will stop. There is a renal handling. pH is the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration. What is the hydrogen ion? Acid. What is the acid? Carbonic acid. What is carbonic acid? Carbon dioxide dissolved in water. That is the denominator. Okay, numerator is the HCO3. Denominator is the carbonic acid. This is the carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is nothing but dissolved carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide plus water is the carbonic acid. Okay, so this dissolution constant of carbon dioxide is 0.03 is the dissolution constant. Each gas will have a dissolution constant. If you multiply that by the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the arterial blood? We know it is 40. So 0.03 multiplied by 40 will be is equal to, the answer here for this will be 1.2 if the carbon dioxide PCO2 is 40. Okay, there is bicarbonate is the numerator and carbon dioxide is the denominator. This is by the kidney and this is by the lungs. Okay, kidneys have a dominant role to play compared to the lungs in acid-base disorder, so you give them the numerator position. And relatively weaker is the respiratory, that is the denominator. So this equation, we will develop this equation. pH is equal to pKa, that is a constant, plus logarithm of bicarbonate by carbon dioxide in the dissolved state. Okay, let us see that. While the lungs take care of the carbon dioxide aspect of the equation, that is this part of the equation, the kidneys adjust and regulate the pH by the bicarbonate part of the equation. Kidneys' role in acid-base balance is excrete the hydrogen ions. It can do by excreting the hydrogen ions, number one. Number two, it can reabsorb the bicarbonate ions, or it can secrete the new bicarbonate ions can be produced. Supposing there is acidosis, it excretes the hydrogen ions, or it reabsorbs the bicarbonate. With both ways it can correct. Suppose there is excess of base, it can excrete more of the bicarbonate, make more bicarbonate, and then send it out. So that is how the kidney responds. So in this equation, please remember, pH is equal to pKa, that is the constant. This is a constant. This is 6.1. So I'll tell you how it is 6.1 later on. That's a constant there. And log of bicarbonate by carbon dioxide in the dissolved state. To get that value, we have to have the PCO2 as we see in the arterial blood, which is normally 40, that multiplied by the dissolution constant 0.03. Okay. The most effective regulator of the pH is, of course, the kidney. The pH of the urine is normally acidic because we generate a lot of acids in the body daily, and these acids have to be excreted. We don't generate much of alkalis. Most of our metabolic reactions are acid generating. In order to neutralize that excess acid generated, the urine is acidic and throws away the acid by the kidney. As we have seen in the previous mechanisms, kidney secretes the acid into the urine, and then the urine throws away the acid out. Can eliminate very large amount of hydrogen ions, or it can mitigate the excess hydrogen ions by reabsorbing the carbonate, and more alkali is brought in, the alkali combines with the acid and neutralizes. Or it can excrete ammonia, NH3 takes up one more hydrogen, becomes NH4. Ammonium chloride is the excretion. These are the three mechanisms by which acid is handled by the kidney. One, by elimination of the hydrogen ion. Two, by bringing back carbon dioxide in the body to neutralize the excess hydrogen. Three, to convert ammonia into ammonium ion and send it away as ammonium chloride into the kidney, into the urine. So if the kidneys fail, pH balance fails because these mechanisms are affected. So renal disease obviously will be one of the most important contributors for acid-base disorders, particularly acidosis. To find the reason for the disturbances, we need to remember who controls what, and thus look at the factors responsible for a particular acid-base disorder. We want to know, suppose there is an acid-base disorder, what is the cause? So then we need to know who controls what. Then if we know that, we can ascribe the reason. So for example, pH is equal to same equation, pKa plus log of bicarbonate divided by the carbon dioxide in the dissolved form, which is 0.03 into PCO2. Let us put the numbers there. So now we can say, if you want to eliminate the constant, we can say approximately equal to. So the equation can be rewritten as pH is approximately equal to, keeping the constant away, and bicarbonate by the kidney, carbon dioxide by the lung. This is the numerator and this is the denominator here. So in other words, it is the ratio of the bicarbonate to the carbon dioxide. Bicarbonate controlled by the kidney, carbon dioxide controlled by the lungs. So one of these two things is important. Either the controlled by the kidney is the bicarbonate and the carbon dioxide controlled by the lungs is the lower denominator. Now let's come to a little bit. So what is the bicarbonate in the blood? In the arterial blood, we know it is 24. 22 to 26 is the normal range. 24. What is the carbon dioxide in the arterial blood? 40. And 40 into dissolution constant is 0.03. This becomes 1.2. So 24 divided by 1.2 is equal to 20. Isn't it? So there is a ratio of bicarbonate to carbon dioxide of 20:1. There are 20 molecules of bicarbonate. There is 1 molecule of carbon dioxide dissolved in the water. Thus, we need to look at the ratio of bicarbonate to carbon dioxide, which should be 20:1 in order to have a pH of 7.4. If the ratio is maintained at 20:1, the pH is maintained at 7.4. Hope you understood that. This equation is called the Anderson-Hasselbalch equation. I'm going to go in the next slide. Probably I would stop at that point and ask you some questions so that you can answer what we have learned. So remember, it is the ratio of the bicarbonate versus the carbon dioxide. Bicarbonate should be the numerator, carbon dioxide is the denominator. What is the bicarbonate in the blood? The arterial blood, 24. What is the carbon dioxide in the arterial blood? Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40. Carbon dioxide never circulates as gas. It is circulating in an aqueous state dissolved in the water there. That dissolution constant is 0.03 into 40 is 1.2. 24 divided by 1.2 is a ratio of 20/1. 24 divided by 1.2 is same as 20 divided by 1. That is the ratio of bicarbonate to carbon dioxide. This gentleman handles the bicarbonate, handles the acid in the metabolic acid mostly by the kidneys. This gentleman in the lungs, it will control the excretion of acid through the lung. So that is the relationship we have here. So let us look at the next slide to derive this normal. The rates of correction we already know. Buffers instantaneous, respiratory few hours to minutes, and several days to few hours is the renal mechanism. That's already told. Now, the first line of defense for the pH shift, there is a slight shift in the pH. The first line of defense is the bicarbonate buffer. The second line is the phosphate buffer. Then come the plasma proteins. Okay, the second, these three are the buffer systems. This is the first line. In the first line, we have 1, 2, 3. In the second line is the pH shift. This is a backup buffer system. Respiratory and renal mechanism. Respiratory A, renal mechanism B. This is few hours and this is days. Whereas this is minutes. Okay, this is how you have to understand that. Now let's go. So in the circulation, you have the RBC and you have the kidney in the system and you have the respiration. In the RBC, carbon dioxide plus water. There is carbonic acid. This carbonic acid is converted into hydrogen, bicarbonate. Bicarbonate, we know it partly intracellular, partly extracellular. This carbon dioxide, when carbonic acid, when split up into carbon dioxide and water, water goes to the kidney for excretion and carbon dioxide goes to the lungs for elimination. That results in decrease in the pH. Whatever acid ion is there in the body is converted this way and then excreted as the acid ion through the heart. The acid ion can go to the kidney and get excreted, increasing the rate of acid secretion into the urine. And that results in the decrease in the pH. This is the respiratory compensation. This is the renal compensation. This respiratory compensation is under the control of the brainstem to increase or decrease the respiratory rate and depth of the respiration. Increasing the rate and depth, carbon dioxide is given off, the acid that is there in the body is thrown out. The same acid is thrown out through the kidney also. These are the mechanisms. Okay, let us see. So acidosis, a decline in the blood pH can be metabolic or respiratory. Metabolic acidosis and respiratory acidosis. due to decrease in the bicarbonate, or there is due to the increase in the carbonic acid, respiratory acidosis. Alkalosis, raise in the blood pH. This is a decline in the blood pH. We know anything less than 7.33 or 34 is acidosis, and 7.44 more than that is alkalosis. Raise in the blood pH can be metabolic, can be respiratory. So you need to study metabolic acidosis, respiratory acidosis, metabolic alkalosis, respiratory alkalosis. In the respiratory, we have acute and chronic, two types. Like that here also, acute and chronic. So we have total 6. One metabolic acidosis, 2 respiratory acidosis, acute and chronic, and 1 metabolic alkalosis, 2 respiratory alkalosis, acute and chronic. So we will be studying 6 types of acid-base disturbances caused by various disorders. We'll come to that later. Now, whenever there is an accumulation of the acids in the body, it increases the hydrogen ion concentration. We know the hydrogen ion concentration, the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration is equal to pH. So if the hydrogen ion concentration is more, the negative logarithm will be less. That is, the pH will be less, which is acidosis. Suppose there is a decrease in the hydrogen ion concentration due to loss of acid or accumulation of base. Both can cause a decrease in the hydrogen ion. There could be an accumulation in the base which neutralizes the hydrogen in the body. So hydrogen ion decreases, or there is a loss of acid, let's say vomiting. You have excess acid is lost. In both cases, the hydrogen ion concentration is reduced, then alkalosis prevails, which is again we know reduction in the H ion concentration is increase in the pH because it is negative logarithm. pH shift this side, which is what is called the alkalotic pH. Okay. Compensation, if the underlying problem is metabolic, hyperventilation or hypoventilation will be the compensation. Because the kidney is at fault, the compensation lungs will do. This is called the respiratory compensation. If the problem is in the respiratory organs, then the renal mechanism comes into picture, then it could be metabolic compensation. Respiratory compensation for metabolic acid-base disturbance and metabolic compensation for the respiratory acid-base disturbance. Now, this mass equation you need to understand. With this we will stop. With mass equation I am going to stop here. What is mass equation? Law of mass equation. Mass equation is a chemical equation for any sort of chemical reaction. Here, the chemical reaction, the central molecule is carbonic acid. This carbonic acid, by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, can be reversibly converted into this side or that side. If it goes towards the left side or forward reaction, it becomes carbon dioxide and water. If it goes onto the right side, which is called the backward reaction, it can be hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. Otherwise, the other words also, hydrogen ion and bicarbonate can combine to form carbonic acid, which can go forward to produce carbon dioxide and water. The other way around, carbon dioxide and water can combine to form carbonic acid, which can dissociate into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. Both ways are possible. This is catalyzed by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. There are several types of carbonic anhydrases. The ones which act on the renal tubule are different from the ones which that are present in the plasma. The ones are different in the respiratory tree. Anyway, we come to that when we handle the renal physiology. Suffice to know, carbonic acid is the central molecule which can go either way, either to form carbon dioxide and water or to form hydrogen ion and carbon dioxide, bicarbonate. Either way it can go, catalyzed by the carbonic acid. Okay. We will take this part of the equation as the most important part. And this is of course the respiratory part, and this is how the metabolically carbonic acid is produced. Acid in the body, hydrogen ion, is combined with the base in the body to form the carbonic acid. Okay. Now what is mass equation? Law of mass action or mass equation is the concentration of the reactant divided by the concentration of the resultant is constant. That is the mass equation. What are the reactants here? Hydrogen ion. What is the and bicarbonate ion? So concentration of hydrogen ion, concentration of bicarbonate ion, sorry, these divided by the concentration of the resultant, which is the carbonic acid, is constant. This is what is called mass equation. You can write anything. Concentration of the reactants on the top, the resultant at the bottom, they are in equilibrium. And that at equilibrium, when they are at equilibrium, this is a constant relationship. This K value changes depending upon the chemical molecules that are there. Okay, remember that. That's the only thing that changes. But it is a constant relationship always for that set of molecules in that reaction. Okay, now what is carbon dioxide? What is bicarbonic acid? Carbonic acid is nothing but carbon dioxide in water, dissolved in water. Isn't it? So, carbon dioxide dissolved in water means we don't know how much carbonic acid is there in the body, but we know how much carbon dioxide is there by the partial pressure measurement from the ABG report. And we also know that the constant is 0.03 is the solubility constant. So we multiply that with the partial pressure there, which is 40, we get the denominator. H and bicarbonate are also given by your this one. The H can be obtained from the pH. H is not given, the pH is given. I will tell you how to get the H there. The bicarbonate, of course, is given by the ABG report. Now let us go a step further. So constant R, this is 0.03, I told 0.0307 in fact. But for all practical purposes, we use 0.03. That's good enough. Okay, hydrogen ion concentration into bicarbonate ion concentration divided by the carbonic acid, which is written as dissolved carbon dioxide, 0.03 multiplied by PCO, which after taking the log value, suppose I take the log values, let's say I bring out the H here, it becomes below 1 by. So when this is numerator, so it becomes lower. So concentration negative log or 1 by H. If you take a log of that, that is pH. Negative log of the hydrogen concentration is pH. And is equal to pK, a constant, and apply the log here because I have moved away the hydrogen, I am left with bicarbonate and the other things here. So it can be rearranged to write that the negative log of hydrogen ion concentration or pH is equal to a constant plus log of logarithm of HCO3 divided by the dissolution constant plus carbon dioxide. This is called the HH equation, also called the Anderson-Hasselbalch equation. So this is essential for you to know this. And this is the chemistry we require. Beyond that, we don't require much of chemistry hereafter. If you know this, we will be going only with the calculations. Now let us obtain the normal pH is 7.4. We said, how is that? We know this relationship. pH is equal to pK plus log of bicarbonate plus 0.03 into PCO2. That's what we have written here. So let us take that equation. So this constant I told you is 6.1 for this equation. The log of 24, because bicarbonate is 24, and then this product is 0.03 into 40, which is 0.2. This is 20, is the log of 20. If you look at the log of 20, the value will be 1.3 from the logarithmic tables. Add that 1.33 to the constant 6.1, and that is 7.4. This is how you derive the normal pH. Let's take a little example here. Let's say my bicarbonate is 48 instead of 24, and then the carbon dioxide is, let's say, same 1.2. That becomes 40. So then the log of 40 will not be 1.3, it will be 1.8 or something like that. Then 6.1 plus 1.8 will be 7.9, which is alkalosis because I have more base here and the pH has become alkalotic. The other way around. Let's say I have only 12 bicarbonate instead of 24 and the carbon dioxide, let's say same, 10. Log of 10 will be 1, log 10 is equal to 1, 6.1 plus 1 is equal to 6.2, which is a very, very acid pH. Sorry, 6.1 plus 1.0 is 7.2, which is a very acid pH. 1 is 1.0 plus 6.1. So the shift in the bicarbonate will shift the reaction either this way or that way. The other way around, you can keep the bicarbonate constant and change the lower value from 40, you can make it 60 or make it 20 and then rework the whole thing. Either way, the equation works. Okay? Anderson-Hasselbalch's equation or pH equation is an essential component of acid-base understanding. So maybe we will reserve the thing later on to the next class. Okay.